YouTube. Y'all already know Big Lou tapping back in. One more again. What it do with Big Lou and MCR2. Baby. Bye, y'all. So check it out. It's the first time you come to the channel. It'd be highly appreciated if you subscribe, like, and share the channel with your family, friends, folks, peoples, buddies, pals, amigos, like us Puertorriqueños, Boricuas, Jibaritos, say, panas. You do that by selecting the black button, subscribe, and then you go to the bell notification and select all, and then you'll be informed each and every time pre-recorded video like this one or shorts is dropped, which is the up to 58, 59 seconds little clips, and as well as live streams, which I finally did it live yesterday after I don't know many months. So my goal is to get back into trying to not trying to get back and do them at least one live a week, if not two or three. It's it's a must to have the trifecta jumping off for your channel, where you're doing pre-recorded videos, you're doing shorts and live streams. Because the more you do them, the more you do, the YouTube algorithm starts picking up, and then when you're dropping a live, like I was saying yesterday, you can tap a live, go into whoever it is live you decide to go up in, and then you can scroll. You can start scrolling through everybody that's live during that time, so it gives you a little bit more exposure, right? So the more you do, the better you'll be put in the YouTube algorithm, right? And that's true, because when I really have my numbers going up, like probably two and a half, three times better than what they are right now. Um, the videos were being exposed more, being more put out there. You know what I'm saying? So I got a lot to do, a lot of work to do on this channel still, as far as trying to get a little more professional, as far as up to date with the technology. The not the thumbnail. Well, yeah, creating thumbnails and pre-record. No, excuse me. Oh man. Intro, like with some music or some type of intro, maybe even an outro, but for sure an intro. And then also editing the videos where when I'm speaking of something in the video, I can have it insert the whatever I'm speaking about, instead of me just saying, yeah, remember in 1932 there was this written by so and so, it was very important to the country, or whatever it might be. And then it's inserted into the video, and it shows whatever it is I'm speaking about. If you catch my drift, that's definitely what helped people, because a lot of times when I'm speaking, not everybody knows everything I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. So those things would very much help, and then like when they're inserted into the video, and then somebody could push pause and then really get a good look at what it is that was inserted into the video. You know what I'm saying? And when you refer to things, when you suggest things, refer to things, you can have them inserted into the video, so people have a better understanding of what you're talking about. So I need to get with all that. I got a brand new laptop that I have never really used. I bought it a couple years back, but it's still brand new. So I know pretty sure there's a lot of stuff I can do with that once I start getting more acclimated with it. I'm not good at tech at all, I'll be honest. So I'll be the first to say. But anyways, so the video is about, since I do this channel, I talk about a wide variety of topics. I talk about life experience stuff, as far as my grandma. I did a video one time about my grandma and my aunt having dementia. I did another video on knowing sign language and how it's helped me out in a couple different situations. I need to start doing a few more videos on life stuff. I also do prison reform, talk about what, how things should be changed. We got old men in their 90s that don't know who they are, poop on themselves, but yet they're still allowing them. The government still wants to keep them locked up, where they can go home and have their families take care of them, where the taxpayer ain't paying for, their round the clock, the round the clock medical service. I talk a little bit of prison stories. I don't get into details about organizations and none of that, or even active names. That's definitely not what I do here. I talk about sports, obviously, basketball, football, baseball, boxing, MMA, and then like this video is pro wrestling. I'm big on pro wrestling, 1984-ish to about 1991. And then I started watching it again around 96, 97 when the NWO and all that. And I only watched WCW. I didn't watch WWF at all back then at that time. And then I just stopped and all, completely. But the wrestling, pro wrestling history, I'm really into it, right? The old school stuff. And so this video is about old school stuff, right? And so unfortunately, a few months back, we lost one half of the Wild Samoans back in January. We lost Sika, Anoa'i, right? And then now, just a few days ago, we lost his brother, Afa. Sika is the father to the first brother that passed in June. He was 79 years old. He was a father to Rosie. One part, I think Rosie was part of the Samoan SWAT team, I believe they were. And then Roman Reigns is his son. And then you got Afa, who was his brother, who just passed away a couple of days ago. He was 81 years old. Um, I don't think he had any sons that wrestled, but this family is huge. Everybody that's Samoan or half Samoan are all pretty much related, except for Samoan Joe. Um, but these guys also had a sister, and she had sons that became wrestlers, such as Rikishi, such as Umaga, such as the Tongan Kid, and then they got sons that are wrestling now. Those are the bloodline. Excuse me, the Usos and Jacob Fatu and Solo and all them guys. They're all related. Rodney, which was Yokozuna, another nephew. The Rock is a family member too, not necessarily bloodline, but because they're from the same. His grandfather, which was Chief Peter Maivia, grew up with these guys' dad. Alpha and Sika, they're from the same village as Samoa, and they considered him uncle, and so they're still family, even though they're not blood. They're still family, very strong ties. You know what I mean? So these guys passed away, and now like I said, one half of the brothers passed, one half of the Wild Samoan team passed, and now the other one. They're famous. I'm gonna read a little something, but I'm pretty sure that these guys wrestled for both Vince Senior, Vince Junior, and then they were involved recently, here and there over the years with Roman Reigns and the excuse me, with uh, the Usos and all that, right? So my point to that was that they've been in there with the WWF, the WWF, and the WWE. Not many people can say they've done that, especially not many that are alive still to this day. Hulk Hogan's one that could say that. Uh, there's a few guys, maybe Cowboy Bob Orton, maybe man, most of the guys passed now. Let me see. Yeah, most of all the guys passed. I don't think Ric Flair wrestled at all for Vince Senior. He was mostly AWA, and then he went to the Carolinas. He had a huge career over there, not to say nothing. Then eventually he came WWF. Then he went back to WCW. Then he came back to WWE, and then he became so-called general manager and all that stuff. Um, yeah, the Wild Samoans. Yeah, Rocky Johnson's gone now. Macho Man's gone. George Animal Steel's gone. Uh, uh, what's his name? Barry Windham's dad. What's his name? Oh man. Blackjack Mulligan, he's gone. All these Andre Giant, obviously, he's gone. Big John Studd passed. So all these dudes that had wrestled under WWF before, which was Vince Senior, they're all gone, and now the Wild Samoans joined them as well. So these guys been all over the place. I mean, as far as they wrestled, like I just said, were there. They also wrestled in Mid South. They wrestled in Hawaii. They wrestled for San Francisco. They wrestled for uh, I think they even wrestled for the Jarretts in Tennessee. They've held many titles. They were the tag team that lost to Rocky Johnson and Teddy Atlas for the first black heavyweight tag team champions in WWF. They were part of that. They were managed by Captain Lou Albano. Um, you know what I mean? So these dudes were big. These guys were big time. I mean, these guys were big time superstars, especially at that time. The Samoan, the Samoan community. This was at the beginning of the run of all these family members. You know what I mean? So the Wild Samoans were a professional wrestling tag team of Alpha Inoue and Sika Inoue in the NWA, right? And the NWA stands for National Wrestling Alliance, but the NWA was big. It was a big umbrella, and many of the territories were under the NWA. For a time, WWF was under the NWA, but not when Vince Jr. took over. Um, and the WWF. They held 20 tag team championships around the world. I believe they wrestled in Japan as well. So the names they're known by in the ring is the Samoans, the Samoan Warriors, the Wild Samoans, and the Islanders. They're both billed at 6'2", and combined weight for the tag team was 645 pounds. So you're talking about some big boys there, right? They're billed from the Isle of Samoa. Debuted in 1973 and they disbanded in '97. Their trainer was Peef. Oh, Peef. Peef. I don't know where that came from. Well, I know where it came from, but it was a mixture of Chief and Pete. So Chief Peter Maivia, which is The Rock's grandfather, trained him, right? And so their gimmick was like, they didn't speak English. They didn't even really speak. They'd make noises. They look all with their eyes, making themselves look crazy. So the Wild Samoans rarely spoke in interviews, instead grunting in a primitive dialect that only their manager, Captain Lou Albano, could understand. They had afros and Fu Manchu mustaches, completing their wild man image. The duo engaged in outrageous behavior, right? Such as nose poking, biting opponents, and eating raw fish during interviews. They are members of the Anoa'i family. Their father, Ametuania Inoue, was a blood brother to their trainer Peter Maivia. So maybe they're blood brothers. So maybe I'm confused. Maybe I got it mixed up. Maybe they really are then blood. Um, the history, like I said, they started in '73. So from '73 to '79, they were in Stu Hart's Calgary. Excuse me, that's in Canada. And Stu Hart is the father to Bret Hitman Hart and Bret to Hitman Hart and Owen Hart, and he's the father-in-law to Jim the Anvil Neidhart and British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith, who they all passed away except for Bret Hart. Based in Stampede Wrestling in '73, they won the Stampede International Tag Team Championship on 2 occasions. They went to Vancouver and won the tag titles there. In '75, they made their debut in the U.S. for Big Time Wrestling in Detroit. They spent the majority of the '70s in various NWA alliances territories, right? So, like I said, San Francisco, St. Louis, many of the territories in Texas, such as WCCW, the Funks, Tully Blanchard's dad. All these guys were under the NWA, Georgia Championship Championship Wrestling in Florida, all the Carolinas, the Crockett's, they were all under NWA. And then he also had outfits, not outfits, but territories in Australia, I think Germany too, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. All those were under NWA umbrellas. From '77 to '79, the Samoans made repeated tours of Japan with International Wrestling Enterprise. In '78, they briefly held the IWA World Tag Team titles. '79 to '80, WWF. In '79, the Wild Samoans joined the WWF. They were initially billed as simply the Samoans before reverting to their better-known name. Occasionally, they were introduced as Lou Albano's Wild Men during TV tapings. They made their Madison Square Garden debut on January 21st, 1980 in a WWF Tag Team Championship match against Tito Santana and Ivan Putski. Those are 2 superstars right there who attained their title. In the upcoming months, both men became contenders for Bob Backlund's WWF Championship, but neither man won the gold. They won their first championship in WWF, the Tag Team Championships, by defeating Santana and Putski on April 12, 1980. They reigned as champions for approximately 5 months until dropping the title to Backlund and Pedro Morales in a 2 out of 3 falls match at Showdown at Shea Stadium. You don't see that no more, about 2 out of 3 falls. Because Backlund was already the reigning WWF champion, the team had to forfeit the title, and a tournament was held to crown new tag team champions. On September 8, 1980, the Wild Samoans defeated Tony Garea and Rene Goulet in the tournament finals to win the title. So both Tony Garea and Rene Goulet were wrestlers, obviously, but towards the late '80s, for sure, by 1990, both of those guys were what they called agents. Agents for WWF, along with George Animal Steel. Sergeant Slaughter was there for a while. Who else was there? Pat Patterson. You had Blackjack, not Blackjack Mulligan's teammate. What was his name? Oh, Jack. What was it? Lanza. Blackjack Lanza. These guys were all agents for WWF. Their reign lasted for 1 month until they lost to Gorilla and his new partner Rick Martel. The Wyatt Samoans feuded with the champions for the rest of the year, but they were not able to recapture the gold. Mid South in Georgia, 81-82. In late 81, changing their name back to the Samoans, they joined Mid South Wrestling with Big Cat Ernie Ladd as their financial advisor and manager. They then changing their team name from the Samoans to the Wild Warriors. They won the Mid South Tag Team Championships and feuded with Junkyard Dog and Dick Murdoch, two big, huge stars. Junkyard Dog was a huge star in Mid South. Uh, that was Louisiana, part of Oklahoma, I believe, and part of Alabama and Mississippi, but he was huge in New Orleans. Uh, After also attacking Ladd, the two began feud with their former advisor. In response, Ladd sold their contract to Skandar Akbar and formed a team with Iron Mike Sharp, with whom he forced the Wild Samoans to leave Mid South. After leaving Mid South, the duo appeared in Georgia Championship Wrestling. As part of the territory, they defeated the Fabulous Freebirds for the NWA National Tag Team Championships, which they later vacated. 82 to 85 to return to WWF. The Wild Samoans eventually ended up back in the WWF with their former manager, Captain Lou Albano, in 82. This time they grew full beards that were scruffy and bushy looking. Alpha and Sika began their third WWF Tag Team Championship reign on March 8, 1983 by defeating Chief Jay Strongbow and Jules Strongbow. Yeah, Chief Jay Strongbow was another agent uh, with all those guys that I mentioned earlier. In a rematch on March 19th, they were also victorious. Also, during this time, while feuding with Rocky Johnson, Jimmy Snuka, and Andre the Giant, the duo added Alpha's son, Samula, to their team. First as a replacement for Sika when he got hurt, then as their backup upon his return. They lost their tag team title to a team of Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas. I said Teddy Atlas earlier. I just caught it right now in my mind. Teddy Atlas is the boxing trainer on November 15th. During the match, Albino tried to interfere on the Samoans' behalf by attempting to hit Atlas over the head with a chair. He accidentally hit Alpha instead, and Atlas covered him for the win. The North-South Connection, Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, would later defeat Atlas and Johnson for the tag team titles on April 17, 1984. The Samoans turned face and challenged them in a lengthy feud. After failing to regain the belts, the duo eventually left the WWF in 85 and reappeared in Pro Wrestling USA, NWA/AWA, where they had a dream match with the Road Warriors. The bout ended in a double disqualification. Sika reappeared for a lengthy run in WWF from 86 to 88, now managed by Mr. Fuji, performing both in singles competition and as a tag team partner with Kamala. Kamala and Sika's biggest match as tag team was a loss to the Can-Am Connection of Superstars Wrestling. Sika also participated in the Invitational Battle Royal that opened WrestleMania 5 when he was the second one eliminated. Alpha returned to WWF in 92 and went on to manage his son Samu and his nephew Fatu as the Head Shrinkers. And then he left again in 95. So his nephew Samu and Fatu, so that was Fatu is Rikishi. I believe it was Rikishi. That's their last name. So it's Rikishi Fatu, Eddie Fatu, which is the Tongan kid, and then there's Umaga Fatu, and Samu is, I believe, Rosie, and he's passed away too. Later years, 85 to 97, after WWF and AWA went to wrestle in the independent circuit, from 86 to 91. In 87, they made a few appearances in National Wrestling Federation. On September 10, 88, they lost to Jimmy Valiant and Rufus Jones by disqualification in the 15th WWC Anniversario in 88 in Puerto Rico. In 91, they split up and both men went their separate ways. Sika will retire from wrestling and trained wrestlers at the Wild Samoans Training Center. Alpha managed the Head Shrinkers in WWF from 92 to 95. After WWF, Alpha continued to train other wrestlers. In 96, Alpha founded World Extreme Wrestling based in Allentown, Pennsylvania. On August 15, 97, both men reunited for one night, teaming with Disco Inferno, Gene Ligon, and Big Cheese as they defeated Ken Timms, George Love, Jay Love, Gary Royal, and Kane Adams at IWA Night of Legends in Kannapolis. North Carolina. Never heard of that one. Um, after let's see, post tag team careers during the '70s, Alpha opened the Wild Samoans Training Center, and schools graduates include Paul Mr. Wonderful Ondorf, Junkyard Dog, Luna Vachon, Michael P.S. Hayes, Yokozuna, Bam Bam Bigelow, Rikishi, Sherry Martel, Virgil, Billy Kidman, Gene Snitsky, Chris Canyon, and Batista. They also promote live wrestling shows under WXW banner. In '07, on the eve of WrestleMania 23, the Wild Samoans were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. They were inducted by their sons Samula and Matt Anoa'i. Well, I think Matt's Rosie. I think I'm not sure about that one. In 13 and 14, Alpha came out of retirement to wrestle for his promotion, World Extreme Wrestling, at age 71. The pair appeared in the 2020 Hell in a Cell to celebrate Roman Reigns' victory. And then, like I said, on June 25th, 2024, Sika passed away at the age of 79. And then on August 16th, 2024, Alpha passed away at 81. This was just recently. So here's some of the titles they held. Continental Wrestling Association, AWA Southern Tag Team Championship, one time. The Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling, NWA Gulf Coast Tag Team Championships, twice. Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA Tag Team Championship, once. International Wrestling Enterprise, IWA World Tag Team Championship, once. Mid-South Wrestling Tag Team Championship, three times. NWA All-Star Wrestling, NWA Canadian Tag Team Championship, Vancouver version, once. NWA Detroit NWA Tag Team Championship Detroit version, two times. NWA Mid-Atlantic, NWA United States Tag Team Championship Mid-Atlantic version, once. And if you guys don't know, not mid, excuse me. What is it called? Wait a minute, I screwed up. Mid-South was Cowboy Bill Watts. And then Mid-Atlantic is what I meant to say. Sorry about that. Mid-Atlantic ended up turning into Crockett Promotions, Jim Crockett Promotions. Okay, we got Pro Wrestling Illustrated. PWI ranked them 93 out of 100 best tag teams during the PWI years in 2003. Man, they got to be way higher than 93. That's they got 92 tag teams ahead of these guys. That's totally insane. Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2012. Southeastern Championship Wrestling, NWA Southern Tag Team Championship, Southern Division twice. Stampede Wrestling, Stampede International Tag Team Championship twice. World Wrestling Council, WWC World Tag Team Championship once. That's out of Puerto Rico. World Wrestling Federation / World Wrestling Entertainment, so WWF, WWE Hall of Fame class of '07, and they held that title three times. So these guys are very decorated. I don't see, as far as decorations, I mean, as far as accolades and hardware, they've won a ton of stuff, right? I mean, you can't put them above the World Warriors. You can't put them up against what's the brothers, the two dudes, the Dudley Boys, the Steiners, Harlem Heat. Uh, I mean, there's been some great tag teams over the years. I mean, just outstanding tag teams, right? Um, but them ranked 93 out of 100. I mean, that's still good. I mean, 100 tag teams out of all these years of wrestling, but they've done, in my opinion, way more for the sport than to have them ranked that high. You know what I mean? Nonetheless, these guys are related to, like I said, Chief Peter Maivia, and Peter Maivia had a brother, I believe, too, who wrestled. Um, Rocky Johnson was married into the family. So was Jimmy Snuka. Um, you had Rocky Johnson's uncle. I mean, excuse me, Rocky Johnson's brother, Ricky Johnson, and then obviously The Rock, Dwayne came out of that. You got Yokozuna. You got the Tongan Kid. Even Haku was, even though Haku's Tongan as well as the Barbarian, they still had a real close tie to these Samoan families. They're still islanders, even though they're different. They're still Polynesians. They're still islanders, still from the same area. It's kind of like Cuban and Puerto Rican, some sense, even though we speak the same language. I'm not sure that Tongans and Samoans don't speak the same language, but from being around each other so much on the mainland, they start learning each other's words. You know what I mean? You got Yokozuna was, even though he acted like he was Japanese, he was really Samoan. The Tongan Kid, really Samoan, but he went by the Tongan Kid. You had and the Tongan Kid used to be tag team partners with with Haku, with Ming. Later he was called Ming, but Haku. Then you got Rikishi, you got Umaga, you got some Samoan SWAT team, you got the Head Shrinkers, you got the Usos, you got the Solo and Jacob Fatu now. You got a few other ones. Jimmy Snuka has a daughter. I can't think of her name right now, but she's cousins with them. She's mixed Samoan and Fijian. Um, I know there's a few more I can't think of right now, but Roman Reigns. I mean, how do you forget him? He's big time now. The Usos are big time too, right? I mean, as far as you know, this time and era, they're making a ton of money compared to what their uncles made, their great uncles made way back in the '70s. You know what I'm saying? But these guys were even, you still had Bruiser Brody that he was like that too. The missing link. That he would just be like, not saying nothing. You had Kamala, the Ugandan giant, which he would just be like, like this. And so these guys were like ahead of their time. They didn't speak though. They would just make grunts and stuff. They would act. Their eyes would be all like they're tripping, and you know what I mean. And so these guys were ahead of. These guys were trailblazers when it came to that. Bruiser Brody, like I said, was around, but he still spoke. He would go like this. It was funny, right? And then Berserker, he started doing that shit too. John Norton, John Nord, he started doing that, and he came in looking like the Viking, and he kind of was like, what's his name? Uh, uh, wow, I just said his name, Brody. You know what I'm saying? He had the big boots. He had the Viking style like boots or furry on the sides, and so they would do all that, trying to act. They would act crazy in between times. You know what I'm saying? But these guys were always crazy. They always act crazy. They'd bite a raw fish, and they'd do all kinds of crazy shit. You know what I'm saying? When you're a wrestling fan, and then even if you're a fan of some of these other guys, the younger guys that are related to his family, they've had a lot of loss. I mean, Yokozuna died. These guys passed. At least they were older though. But Yokozuna died young. Umaga died young. Rosie died young. They were all young, and they all had some heart problems and stuff like that. But the family's been through a lot. And they're still pushing, and they're still becoming more and more family members are getting into the wrestling business, and they're becoming stars and superstars. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And my hat tip goes off to them guys, because back in the day that it was hard for these dudes. We hear the stories about Stone Cold and Hulk Hogan and some of these other dudes that they didn't just right away, make it right away. Like Ric Flair was more. I think Ric Flair made it to the top faster than a lot of these other guys. And I'm not saying like he got a free ride. I'm not saying that at all. Sometimes you just got to be at the right place at the right time. You know what I'm saying? Other times your talent shines really quickly wherever you're at, and that has something to do with being at the right place at the right time too. But you hear the stories about the guys driving from Texas to Mississippi, Mississippi to Florida, Florida to North Carolina, North Carolina all the way to St. Louis, and then from St. Louis up to Detroit, and then to Chicago, and then on over up the border to Canada, and going to Vancouver and Montreal, and wrestling in all these different territories, and a lot of these guys' stories was they didn't even have food. They didn't have money for food, barely had money for gas. They definitely didn't have money for a motel room. A lot of them slept in cars. A lot of them had to sleep together, 3-4 guys in a room, to put their little $20 a piece, $15 a piece, or whatever rooms were back then. I know it was a lot cheaper, so it could have been $10 a piece. Got a room for $40. A lot of guys are sleeping on the floor. They didn't mind because it was better than not having nowhere to lay down. You know what I'm saying? And so you hear the stories of them eating canned foods, and them eating bologna packs, and them having bread and making food that way. So definitely wasn't towards them beneficial towards their, working out and having eaten right. It's just, it was all about survival. And all that stuff had to be paid out of their own pocket. And on top of that, as it is still to this day, they don't have a union. They do not have health care, health insurance, none of that. They do not have a retirement program, a pension to pay into. You have to do all that type of stuff on yourself. So if you got to invest in bonds and stocks and some type of portfolio and all that, that's what you got to do. You got to pay out what you earn for your, for your insurance and all that, because you got to have that. Especially when you've got a family, you got to have all that. And so, at no time has Vince McMahon, any of these guys tried to put something together. Matter of fact, at one time it's talked about with not Jimmy, but Jesse Ventura. was pushing the boys about, riling them up to push for that. He told Hulk Hogan about it. Hulk Hogan went and told Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon killed it by firing Jesse Ventura. So, Hulk Hogan was being he was being greedy, because at that time, like I said on another video the other day, there was only one Hulk Hogan. That was it. Everybody that was a heel, Big John Studd, King Kong Bundy, Cowboy Orton, Roddy Piper, Mr. Wonderful, all these guys, they all, the one man gang, Yokozuna, they all had their turn with Hulk Hogan. And when they wrestled Hulk Hogan, they got bread. They got cashed out. So by Hulk Hogan not speaking up and saying something to Vince McMahon about Jesse Ventura's pushing for unions and all that, that would have messed up Hogan's money, because here it is, like say WrestleMania or something. Here Hulk Hogan's making $1 million or $2 million. Everybody else are getting like 50,000, 30,000, 20,000 to wrestle that day. So even if you put all the guys together, they're still not making as much as Hulk Hogan. And so Hulk Hogan knew that if they did make unions, that his money would be, chopped down. Fast forward to nowadays, you got John Cena, The Rock, you got Batista, you got Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, all these different guys that are considered good guys, which are faces, baby faces, and there's not just no more one big guy. Hulk Hogan, you have a champion, and they're a little more hotter than the other guys. They got more heat with different heels, which are bad guys, but it's a bigger broad, it's more broad with the action in the ring and who's who, if that makes sense to anybody. And so, anyways, back to the point of these two legends of the game of wrestling, professional wrestling. They paved the way for the family. And even though some of the family members, like, the Tongan Kid and Rashiki in his early career, they had it rough too. It's not like how, the pay's way different. Nowadays they're booked in the hotels and flown here and flown there. I'm not sure how, if the company pays for the flights and all that. I don't really see why they wouldn't, because I don't think it really would hurt them, WWF, to pay for the flights. But back then, these guys were driving everywhere. You know what I'm saying? They were driving everywhere. So they would leave somewhere on a Sunday and have to be in, say Florida on a Sunday, and have to be in Texas on Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday. So that's a lot of driving nonstop. Can you imagine what it does here and to your physical ability to be on the road like that, where you're not really getting much rest, you're not eating good, and you're not really getting good workouts, because when you do hit the gym, you're not really eating what you need to eat. And it's just basically, everything's carbs that you're eating, right? And so it's something else. And look at these guys' physiques. And I'm not just talking about Hulk Hogan and Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior. There's a ton of guys that were, Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson, and I'm trying to think of that one dude. He wrestled for Portland. He had some big arms. Mike Steele, was it Mike Steele? I think it was. But there's been some big guys over the years. You know what I'm saying? The Road Warriors too. Them guys, Animal and Hawk. Those are two big dudes. Then later the Barbarian and Warlord. And there's still guys in between here and there that were Lex Luger. You know what I mean? Different guys. Sting stopped working out when he started wrestling, because he used to be a bodybuilder too. And so, anyways, it's just a little story of the history on obviously these guys, the Wild Samoans. A little bit of history about to wrestlers in general back in the '80s, and what they had to do to get around, and how they ate and all that, and how they, how they were, their room and board, how everything was pretty jacked up for these guys, and yet they still made their dates and all that. And so, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this down. Damn, I didn't expect this video was gonna be 33 minutes. But I ended up doing it. I mean, I was thinking 20 maybe, but 33 I guess ain't too bad. It ain't an hour and 33 minutes, but it was a solid video of straight facts and knowledge, and hopefully everybody, anybody that's old enough to remember these guys can drop some comments on what they remember. That being said, Big Lou, tapping out.